So I need to turn my attention. I hope the lighting is fixed now. I'm sorry that it was flickering earlier, but maybe I fixed it. Maybe I've not fixed it. If you notice any flickering, please report back. But I want to turn my attention to the battered but unbroken city of Odessa, a city of trade, culture, grain, now synonymous with loss, resistance, and bombardment by Russia, of course, and this brutal barrage. On the 23rd of May, today, two Russian ballistic missiles slammed into the civilian port infrastructure of Odessa. Two people are dead, seven more are wounded, four critically. The victims are port workers, not soldiers. The site was a command post, not a munitions store, but the working heart of Ukraine's southern trade routes, its grain, its lifeline. So let's be absolutely clear, this wasn't a military strike, it was a missile aimed at food security, global supply chains, and the fragile moral fabric of international law. And since the dawn of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022, Odessa has endured over 100 distinct strikes, from the Caliber missiles to Iran-made drones from the sea, from the sky. Russia's obsession with Odessa stems from its symbolic status as Ukraine's cosmopolitan window to the world and its logistic role in feeding tens of millions through grain exports. One need only glance at the timeline. On February the 24th, 2022, the invasion's opening salvos struck radar sites in Lipetsk. By March, shelling intensified along the Black Sea coast. In April, Ukraine famously sunk the Moskva, the flagship of Russia's Black Sea fleet, a strategic humiliation that appears to have unleashed a petulant, punitive campaign against Odessa itself. By July 2023, UNESCO World Heritage Sites were being hit. In March this year, a missile exploded just a few hundred meters from President Zelensky and the Greek Prime Minister in Odessa. At that moment, Russia didn't merely threaten Ukraine, it threatened diplomacy itself, global diplomacy itself. What of the present stroke? Governor Oleg Kipa confirms it involved two ballistic missiles. They struck a civilian port engine room. Windows were shattered across administrative blocks. Equipment vital to grain export was annihilated. According to Oleksiy Kuleba, Ukraine's Minister for Infrastructure, this was, to quote, a normal working day in a normal Ukrainian port. Yet that normality is precisely what Moscow cannot abide. Peaceful economic activity in their worldview is a threat, not because it poses military danger, but because it embodies Ukrainian sovereignty and post-war recovery, and perhaps worse, it works. This isn't collateral damage, it's calibrated economic warfare, and Odessa is not just a Ukrainian city, it's a global hub, and through its ports flow the grain that feeds Yemen, Somalia, and Egypt. And when Russia attacks Odessa, it doesn't just strike Ukraine, it imposes hunger on the poorest in the world. As Amnesty International has said, and of course Russia has just outlawed Amnesty International, the weaponization of food supply amounts to collective punishment. Indeed, the UN has not minced its words. These may constitute war crimes. UNESCO has condemned the repeated targeting of cultural heritage and civil infrastructure by Russia. What is under threat in Odessa is not just life and livelihood, but the very rules that civilize warfare, assuming such a phrase still holds meaning in our age. Let's not forget, Kyiv accepted a US-brokered unconditional ceasefire in March. Moscow refused. It didn't counter-propose, it didn't negotiate, it escalated. And the myth of Russian openness to peace is precisely that, a myth constructed for the credulous and repeated by Russian apologists. And as of May 2025, over 400 pieces of port infrastructure have now been damaged. Over 30 ships have been attacked, civilians killed for a crime of operating cranes and loading grain. And this isn't military strategy, it's malice masquerading as policy. And we must call this what it is, a deliberate campaign of infrastructural terror designed to break Ukraine's economy, to starve the global south, to test the resolve of international institutions. Odessa stands today as a battered sentinel It absorbs punishment so others might eat. It's a front line in the battle, not just for Ukraine's future, but for the credibility of international law and the endurance of human decency. If this is what Moscow calls a special military operation, then the language has failed, and so has our threshold for outrage. Let's not fail alongside it. This isn't special, this is brutal. And this isn't an operation, this is a destruction. Though one of those three words is sort of correct, military. Yes, absolutely, military. Russia is demonstrating its military power. Well, when you spend 40% of your budget on military hardware, on military focus, then maybe the things you do can be defined in military terms. But the things which are defined in military terms generally are wars. Let's not mince words. This is a war that Russia started by invading its neighbour.